Have you ever watched your phone light up, only to realize it wasn't the person you were waiting for? At first, they couldn't stop talking to you. They replied within minutes. They laughed at your jokes. They remembered the little details about your life. They made you feel seen. Then one day, nothing. Your messages remain unopened. Hours become days. Days become weeks. You tell yourself they're probably busy. Then you notice they've posted a new photo. They're active online. They're talking to other people. Just not to you. And suddenly, your mind becomes a detective. Did I say something wrong? Did I become boring? Was any of it even real? Being ghosted doesn't just end a conversation. It creates a mystery. And the human brain hates mysteries it can't solve. That's why ghosting often hurts more than hearing the painful truth. Because rejection has an ending. Silence doesn't. Today, we're exploring one of the most common, and emotionally confusing, behaviors of the digital age. Why do people ghost others? Is it selfishness? Fear? Emotional immaturity? Or is there something much deeper happening inside the human mind? Let's step into the hidden psychology behind disappearing without saying goodbye. Imagine reading a mystery novel, but the final chapter is missing. You never discover who committed the crime. You never learn why it happened. That unfinished feeling would stay with you. Ghosting works in exactly the same way. The human brain is constantly searching for patterns and explanations. When something important suddenly ends without closure, the brain refuses to let it go. Instead, it begins creating possibilities. Maybe they're angry. Maybe they're sick. Maybe they're talking to someone else. Maybe they never liked me. Maybe. Maybe. The problem is that our brains naturally lean toward negative explanations. Psychologists call this a negativity bias. When information is missing, the brain often fills the gaps with our deepest fears. That's why one unanswered message can spiral into hours of overthinking. You aren't just waiting for a reply. You're waiting for certainty. And certainty never comes. Imagine a university student who meets someone during orientation. They spend weeks studying together. Late-night phone calls become a daily routine. Friends start teasing them about becoming a couple. Everything feels effortless. Then exams end. One message receives no reply. Another goes unanswered. Days pass. The student checks their phone every few minutes. They replay every conversation. They wonder if they talked too much. If they weren't attractive enough. If they somehow ruined everything. Months later. They still don't know why the other person disappeared. Not because the relationship lasted forever. But because it never received an ending. Most people think ghosting happens because someone is heartless. Sometimes that's true. But surprisingly, many ghosters feel guilty. They simply fear uncomfortable conversations. Imagine telling someone, "You're a wonderful person, but I don't feel the same anymore." Or, "I've met someone else." Or even, "I just don't think we're compatible." Those conversations are emotionally exhausting. For someone who struggles with conflict, disappearing feels easier. It's a shortcut. A temporary escape from guilt. Unfortunately, escaping discomfort doesn't erase it. It simply transfers the pain onto someone else. The ghoster avoids an awkward 5-minute conversation. The other person may spend 5 months wondering what happened. Avoidance often feels like kindness to the person doing it. But to the person left behind, it feels like abandonment. Imagine a young woman who becomes close friends with a coworker. They eat lunch together every day. They celebrate birthdays. They know each other's families. Eventually, the friendship begins to fade. The coworker feels they've changed. Instead of saying, "I think we've grown apart," they slowly stop replying. They ignore invitations. Eventually, they disappear completely. Years later, both people remember the friendship. One remembers avoiding an uncomfortable conversation. The other remembers wondering what they did wrong. The same story. Two completely different experiences. Here's something surprising. Not everyone who ghosts is trying to hurt someone. Sometimes people ghost because they're overwhelmed. They're battling anxiety, depression, burnout, family problems, financial stress, or emotional exhaustion. Replying to one message suddenly feels impossible. Days pass. Then guilt begins to grow. The longer they wait, the harder it becomes to respond. Eventually, embarrassment takes over. Now they don't know how to explain their silence. So they remain silent. Again. And again. Until weeks become months. This doesn't excuse ghosting. But it reminds us that human behavior is often more complicated than it appears. Sometimes people disappear because they don't know how to explain the storm happening inside their own minds. Never before in history have humans had so many ways to meet new people. Dating apps, social media, online communities. One swipe, one follow, one message. Thousands of possibilities. At first, this seems like freedom. But psychologists have discovered something unexpected. Too many choices often make people less satisfied. Because every decision comes with the fear of missing something better. Instead of investing deeply in one relationship, some people keep searching. Always wondering if someone more attractive, more interesting, or more compatible is just one swipe away. Relationships slowly become disposable. People become notifications. Conversations become temporary entertainment. Ghosting becomes easier because technology removes the emotional weight of leaving. Ignoring a message requires almost no effort. Looking someone in the eye and saying goodbye requires courage. Imagine two people who meet through social media. They talk every day for months. One begins imagining a future together. Meanwhile, the other is talking to several people at once. One conversation becomes more exciting. Instead of honestly ending the first relationship, they simply stop replying. No explanation. No apology. Just silence. To one person, it was just another conversation. To the other, it was a broken connection they genuinely cared about. Ghosting often creates emotional scars that last much longer than the relationship itself. People who have been ghosted frequently begin expecting it to happen again. A delayed text suddenly feels threatening. A busy day becomes evidence that someone is losing interest. Trust becomes harder. Overthinking becomes normal. Some even begin ghosting other people. Not because they want to, but because they've unconsciously learned that's how relationships end. Pain has a strange way of repeating itself. Unless we're aware of it. But here's the truth many people need to hear. Someone else's inability to communicate honestly is not proof that you weren't enough. Sometimes the silence you received says far more about their emotional readiness than it ever could about your worth. Not every unanswered question deserves an answer. Sometimes accepting uncertainty is the healthiest closure you'll ever receive. Ghosting isn't simply about unanswered messages. It's about fear, avoidance, technology, emotional maturity, and our deep human need for certainty. Every disappearing act leaves behind two stories. One belongs to the person who walked away. The other belongs to the person left searching for answers. The tragedy is that both often carry emotions the other never sees. Perhaps the greatest lesson isn't learning why people ghost. Perhaps it's learning that honest communication is one of the rarest forms of kindness in today's world. The next time you're tempted to disappear from someone's life, ask yourself one question. Is silence really protecting them? Or is it only protecting you from an uncomfortable conversation? And if you've ever been ghosted, remember this. Your worth was never determined by someone else's silence. Now we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever ghosted someone, or been ghosted yourself? Looking back now, would you handle that situation differently? Share your experience in the comments below. Your perspective might help someone else make sense of a painful experience. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more journeys into the hidden psychology behind everyday human behavior. Until next time, keep exploring your hidden mind.